Oh, we're on. Good morning. Happy Friday after PCBC for all of our industry friends. We are back in the office. Ryan and I went to PCBC and got in late last night like many of you, and so we're still having sleep on the face.
We're coming in just for this.
Literally, we are here just to be on Facebook Live and keep our whole, we're doing this every Friday at 10. We could have asked someone else to do it, I guess.
But they weren't at PCBC, so.
I know, we wanted to talk about PCBC while it's fresh. So good morning. And if you're just tuning in, thank you for watching the replay. Or we're going to be talking about PCBC. So essentially, Ryan and I just went from the office this year. So this is our first year of just us going, and our spouses.
Right. This is the first year of just us going.
Yeah.
And we went in a very different fashion than we usually go. There was no working for the actual event.
We didn't have to work the show.
So there was no lugging cameras around and, trying to meet, deadlines and get everything in. We kind of were able to make it more our show in terms of what we wanted to do and handle it the way we wanted, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. We also, and I'm sorry, Linda Baysari and PCBC team, we did not buy the education passes this year. This, I'm going to say, is the first time, I think I've been to PCBC now for 16 or 17 years, and maybe missed one or two because I was like really pregnant or something, that I haven't bought the education pass. And, there's many reasons for that. But for us, it was like so great this year. So we're not going to be able to tell you about all the education because we didn't get any. We got educated in different ways. But we did go to the keynotes, which we'll talk about. And we walked the floor. So, and we saw, of course we partied it up. So,
Yeah, a lot of food, a lot of parties, and the keynotes, were fantastic. So it was great to be able to, just focus on those things that we, really did enjoy. I did, however, miss, and I think this is the second year without the Vine. We really always did enjoy doing that. We did miss the Vine. But some of their keynotes, especially Platon, the first keynote on the first day, it was a good reminder, actually, of the Vine for me in terms of the style of speaker that they pull in. The opening, they had a choir, a kids choir, motivational children's choir, come and open the show, open the keynote, which was very, to me, reminiscent of things that they would do at the Vine.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed, that aspect of.
It was a good way to kick off the show, get you all inspired for the morning. So that's what we're going to talk about, actually, is the keynotes and our takeaways from those. Because for us, seeing the motivational speakers is what we as business leaders, and not being actual home builders ourselves, as you know very well, we're on the social media, digital media side of the world. So being inspired to build our team and see where we can take the company is like our main goals out of what we can get out of the show. Because honestly, as it comes to education, we pretty much spend most of our bucks on social media conferences, digital marketing conferences, and doing that kind of stuff so that we are like, in the know on all of that stuff. Super important to our business. And then just kind of keeping our hands on the pulse of where most of our clients are working is, the next important thing for us, which is why we go to PCBC.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Melissa. And Lisa. Hi, Lisa. And Sandy. And Jenna. And lots of our staff is watching because we're like, if you want to see the recap, get on and watch us. So let's talk about the first speaker.
He was amazing.
Platon.
Platon, photographer, portrait photographer. He has photographed so many world leaders, presidents, different, countries, I think, war areas. He
rock stars, like iconic figures in our history.
And the stories that he brought to each one of those sittings, they were just amazing. And that's what he kind of did, is he walked through a series of his portraits that he did, and then gave us information about that person, like more of the personal interaction of, how that photo took place, how, he captured the emotion, the in his type of terms, the essence of that person. And like I said, the stories are just amazing. Starting with, I don't remember which president he started. He started with Bill Clinton?
No, he did not start with Clinton. He started with Barack, Michelle.
Barack and Michelle. The presidents wise, yeah.
Bush, he shot them all.
Right.
Both Bushes.
Yeah. Just the, like I said, the stories that you got from the way that he, would go about eliciting, the photo that he wanted from them, was amazing. And talking about what the meaning of each photograph has for different people is different, and the way that they get analyzed is different. And to hear that story in terms of like George Sr., that he had a picture with him where he had a long conversation with him about Churchill. Was it Winston Churchill that do you remember that he had a fascination with?
Yeah.
And he was taking a picture, and he had the V up in his picture for victory, and that was really what had come from that picture, and that was the picture that got used and published. And the fact that during that picture, everyone took that meaning in different ways,
depending on what generation you were in.
What generation you were in, what side you were, Republican versus Democrat. A lot of people, he was fearful. A lot of people were taking it for the peace sign, that you've got George Sr. holding up a peace sign in the cover of a magazine, and what that is going to mean towards
I mean,
everyone.
if you're a boomer, you're probably like V for victory. If you're Gen X or younger, you're like peace.
And then the funny one was one of the reporters talking about that piece and how it meant something to him. Also came in and said his child
sent him a letter
looking at that cover, and the child looked at the picture and was saying, "Oh, look, the president does little bunny foo-foo,"
So it's like the interpretation of the photos was such an amazing part of the story that Platon was telling us. By the way, at Platon, Platon on Instagram, you can go see all of his photos. Go follow him. He's amazing.
Right. And he, in his descriptions, a lot of them include some of those details, some of those stories.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to go on and take a look at his Instagram account and see all of those amazing photos.
So he showed us probably 50 photos, I would say, at least, and told some longer stories, some very short stories about the meaning behind the photo or whatever happened in that moment of the snap of the photo that was published. And, conveying some of the messages of the people that he was shooting to us. And so kind of there was so many big, we could talk about this and have deep conversations in many different ways about what the message he was trying to convey to us. One was, the first one for me, the first big message I took was all of the things he's talking about, all the world leaders he's shot on. He discussed every big problem you could think of, and he has a photograph of that person, and tells this little piece of the story that super humanizes that person, but also kind of gets you charged up about whatever that conversation is happening at that time when that photo was taken. And the idea that, some people were like, well, I would like you to just tell everybody my story, that this is happening in my corner of the world. And so for me, all these stories that we heard over an hour and 20 minutes, he talked for a long time, was just saying, we need to talk about these things. And I'm here, it's like, oh, sorry, Dad always calls. Dad, you need to get on Facebook. We are on the live at this time of the morning. So is that we should just be talking about these bigger world issues more and more and more, because that's what, without being like super politically charged and all hateful, we need to be talking about them in a constructive way and letting it, be okay for us all to talk about this crazy stuff and know that there's a person behind most of these issues, just like us. Like Platon was so funny because he was so just dorky. I mean, honestly, he was kind of nerdy, and the things he said to people, these world leaders, were the nerdiest things. And that's just what humanized them and took them out of their like and into a laughing state, so he could get that photo that he wanted.
Right. Yeah. And we had talked about amongst us after that, seeing that keynote, and that dorkiness that he had, and those questions that he asked that seemed so, impromptu, that he, off the seat of his pants that he was coming up with this, is the way he presented it, which we thought was very interesting, or I thought was very interesting, because to me, I've got to believe that, he thought about those questions. When he asked Vladimir Putin, his first question was like, I have to ask you a question, and he had his whole entourage around him, and, this was a very tense, moment. He had been led into this room by gunpoint, it was very, tense to have, a non-Russian there taking a photograph, a sitting of Putin. And he was like, I have to ask you a question, and he's got his interpreters talking to him, and he says, do you like the Beatles? And Putin is silent for a while, and everyone's just kind of like hushed, and then Putin sends everybody except for his security out of the room, and Putin says, oh, I love the Beatles.
I love the Beatles!
And the idea to me that that was an impromptu question, it seems that way, but to me, he had to have been organizing that question.
The
to
research.
To try and, reduce the tension in that room, to open up, so that he could elicit the photograph he wanted from, that city. And the idea that the photographer, that person behind the lens, they are trying to elicit what they believe is the essence of that person, but to me, they're also, putting on some of that essence. They are directing that person in the way they want. He could have gone in and left the room tense and showed us that, the tension of the room, with Putin. Instead, he tried to break that tension and show us, it wasn't like a Putin at ease, but let Putin show kind of the subtle power, that he has, in that room. So that was Platon's, to me, that was Platon's, this is what he wanted from him, and that's what he got.
Yeah. The other thing we talked about, though, about this conversation was how powerful, because because Platon's conversation was about power and the transfer of power, and that's why he showed us all these powerful people. But I think like a more subtle message that I don't know if everyone took this away was how powerful Platon is, because his photos have been on so many magazine covers and have shaped, like they're always taken at the end of a presidency or the fall of a president in Bill Clinton's case. Very poignant moments in time, like when Adele is like releasing a new record, like they're very big moments. That's when he gets the call to come in and take the photo. And then he is the one, like just this guy who's super funny and super nerdy and super cool at the same time, is literally shaping what we are seeing and what we think and what we believe. He's creating all of these conversations, and like the power in the click of his finger is huge. And what he has done, like the last 20 years, probably longer, 20, 30 years, I would say, that he has been photographing these huge moments in time. Our interpretation of those moments is from his photograph. and we don't even know it. We don't even know this guy's name.
Right.
We don't even know who he is.
Right. Yeah. Until today, there was two descriptions of that, or times that happened. Is the one we're talking about, the Bill Clinton photo, and this was after the scandal, and his handlers were very careful with him on what they wanted, and were going to allow Platon to do, and he did what they all wanted, but then he got his photo in at the end too, and it was impromptu in Platon's view, and it was the style that he liked to shoot, but he didn't think it would get picked up because the magazine's going to choose what they want, and they wanted something else. But in the end, they chose his photograph, and it went, on the newsstands.
Was it Larry King or someone else?
And then it was Larry King that when Platon even found out that his photo got chosen, he was watching Larry King and found out Larry King did a whole hour just analyzing the photo that was coming out.
It had leaked.
Clinton. It had leaked.
And tonight, this whole hour, we're going to talk about this photo and what it means.
What it means and how wrong it is, and led this whole discussion. And they showed how they had experts come on and analyze what every thing in the picture meant. Like it was completely derived. It was completely set up for all these different meanings, but it was literally just a click that he got at the last second. To do his one photo.
And Bill was like, I know what he wants. Pose for the picture, click, done. He's out. He had 8 minutes with Bill Clinton. Right. So there's no time for any of that. Right. But the idea of the analyzation of that photo and what it all meant at that point in history is just like, it's kind of funny. Right.
And he said that was his first president. Yeah.
That was his first president, yeah.
President, shoot. But then the other one he talked about that led a conversation and maybe changed, an election was the picture he did of a Muslim mother standing over the grave of her veteran son who had passed away. And that was, again, a quick photo. And he told us how that story happened and how that photo came about. It wasn't posed or set up. He just asked if he could take the picture, and she allowed him, and it got published in a series, again with Time or those magazines. And that photo was what led Colin Powell to support Barack Obama versus John McCain with 16 days left in the election. And I remember when that happened. And that did, change the direction of a large portion of, Republicans on which way they voted. But the photo wasn't, he didn't set that photo up to do that. He wasn't setting that photo up. It was just in his conversation, he didn't even recognize that she was, Muslim. He just saw this moment of a, grieving mother, over, the gravestone of her veteran son, and grabbed that picture. And that ended up changing the course of,
things that make us make the decisions that we decide to make, or the choices, or it's when you think about where that comes from, never really what it is, probably like what you think it is. It's so crazy to me.
Yeah, that's crazy. So he was amazing. I definitely, like I said, go on Instagram, follow him.
Yeah, I mean, if you're still watching and you were there, definitely give us a little like, because I know you loved Platon as much as we did. Everyone took something away from that. There's no way. Okay, moving on.
Yes.
Moving on to the next keynote speaker that we saw yesterday morning. Totally different, side of the what we're talking about here.
Where they're both inspirational, in their own ways. And this was Patrick Lencioni, and his topic was organizational health. Yeah. So this topic was much more directed, directly, at at us, at our companies, at what we need to do, what we should be looking for, driven, in a way of, okay, how to manage, your company and your people and what's important, how to balance everything, and that. So, much more, direct to, just, okay, let me take these notes. I need to write this down. I want to bring this back to my company. We want to talk about it. We need to see how we can enact some of these things that he's talking about.
Building strong executive teams, how to do that. He was so good.
Yeah.
I had so many takeaways from him, but as far as like some of the big ones would be, which I thought was really good, and you could really translate this to your whole life. But he talked about conflict. Like he talked about trust and conflict. He has this book. It's the 5 misbehaviors of a team or something like that. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Just like 5 dysfunctions,
There you go.
not misbehaviors. 5 dysfunctions of a team, I think. And so he went through it, like, in detail, which was so great. And it started with trust being the first thing, like when you're trying to build a team, which is huge for us. And I think it's huge for any team, whether your team is like all working together, whether they're a consulting team on a short project. Trust is like the foundation, which we should all know this, right?
Right. But in that conversation, because even when we say that, and he talked about that in the very beginning, was people believe that trust, you say, oh, trust is the foundation, and that trust, in most of our views, when we look at it, we say, okay, well, we trust the person that I say, okay, can you do this task? And you trust that they're going to get that task done. That's not the trust, that he was describing. That's not the trust we're talking about is building that foundation. The trust is, the trust in your team that, in the easiest sense is that you can give feedback. You can know, okay, I don't know what this person really is asking for, and I trust that I can, ask that question to them instead of just go off and try to get it done. I trust that, I can give my feedback and, conflict or view, and have that be, the other person respond to that, and not in a manner of no, just do what I say, and I trust that you're going to get the tasks done. But that the communication aspect of trust is there. That the team trusts that we can share with each other, and that the team is going to be
responsive to that. Even if it's not like whatever you're saying is going to be the end result, maybe you're not going to get your way. But I can trust that I can put this out there to the team, or I can trust that I can tell, someone on the team that they're really like not working up to par in this aspect of what they're doing, and that they're not going to quit. You know what I mean? Like it's that kind of foundational trust, or that the team can come to me and say, I'm having this problem, or I don't know how to do this. I just can't do this on my own. And that I'm not going to fire them, or reprimand them. I'm just going to that's the trust where, then we're going to work together on that. Let's get this done,
Right. And on that same of talking to the boss and being able to say, I don't think, or I need this from you. I'm not getting this from you that's going to help me, whether it's, the resources or just the communication. I'm not getting the communication, from you that's telling me I'm, doing what I need to be, doing, that I feel comfortable and confident. So, everything, in his tiers or his triangle of how, to build that strong organization or build that organizational health, it's all laid on that foundation.
Yes. But the next one, conflict. So this one I felt like, it's just good for us as a culture to learn how to do, to learn how to have conflict in your life and not flee from it, run away from it, go just feeling crushed from it. But it's so important to be able to have a discussion about something that you don't agree on, or even something that is an idea over here that might be in left field, and someone else has a totally different opinion about that, that you can discuss that until, you've resolved that without yelling, without, quitting, without getting a divorce. It goes across everything, right? conflict is part of our culture. And so learning how to have conflict on your team was like the second, pillar in the pyramid, whatever, however you want to say that. It was like the next thing. You have your trust, then you have your conflict. And learning how to do that, I think, is huge. And it creates so much more creativity when you're able to really talk through something and have a resolution. And the person who like didn't win that whatever is like, you know what? I'm totally on board with what you're doing. Like, that's how conflict should be resolved.
Right.
It was good.
Right. But it wasn't always there's a conflict with a winner. It's, it's a conflict where, there could be multiple ideas and you have different, ways of getting to the same place. It's the idea that you can, have that discussion, and in the end, I might not be sold that, Kelly's idea is the best. I still think, that my idea, is going to work. But in the end, we make that decision and say, okay, we've got to go one way. We're going to go with your way, Kelly. And I'm fully in on it. I'm.
That's the backing.
Right, that's the backing that I trust you. I trust my team. It comes back to the trust that we can do it this way, your way, and we're going to succeed at it. And knowing that at least you heard my idea, you heard my concerns, on that, and that we can move forward, and I don't feel like you're just steamrolling me, and you're just it's always my way, my way, my way. Hopefully I see that you're taking my concerns and all of that in. But once that's resolved, you need to have the full backing of that team.
Yeah.
So that's where that conflict and how to manage that conflict is there, and how I love the conversation about that sometimes the teams have that person that I won't say that person, but you have someone that you start thinking, the team starts thinking that they're throwing out ideas that don't work, and instead of just saying that in the meeting, addressing that conflict and saying, I don't think that idea is going to work. I don't think it's very good. We need to,
Nobody
I need you
likes to do that.
Reshift, and think of some other ways, or address that issue that someone's throwing out ideas that you don't work. What a lot of people end up doing is they start dismissing that person instead of addressing the conflict. And they hear the idea and then they move on. And that person never, understands that, they don't, really, that their ideas, are constantly just getting discarded,
It's not good for anybody's like mental health when that's happening. So first you have like the person who's kind of wussing out, right? You're being a total wuss by not letting that person know directly that idea is not going to work. Let's discuss it. Let's talk it through, and so they start feeling less and less useful, and eventually, I think the result of that is they get fired.
Right. Or it blows up, and that's it.
Yeah, or it blows up. There's like a few results. None of them are good.
Right.
And the bottom line is you have to tell that person on your team directly. You need to be able to have the trust that everyone's going to be okay, that just because you don't like someone's idea doesn't mean you should ignore it. You've got to just like take that head on. And I mean, I am guilty of doing this. I'm sure we all are. It's so hard to you feel like you're crushing someone. I'm just crushing their idea or their little spirit. You don't want to do that, but it's not necessarily what's going to happen. If you do it in a kind way, then you can move past that and move on to new ideas, different ideas. You don't have to get hung up on this thing that keeps chirping in your head, and you're like, "Ah, I hate your idea."
Right, and that's that term of building that that leadership team. With what they call the organizational health. That team, and sometimes that answer is that someone has to be removed from that team.
Yeah.
But there's many ways to address those issues and trying to get the best out of people and their comfort and everything in that team needs to be something that's focused on and worked on. It's not just this guy's got bad ideas and we don't listen to him. Let's get rid of him.
Yeah.
You need to confront that head on as it's happening. And see if you can work it out.
There was another big takeaway I took from him, and I should have written this down because right now it's like a little bit, I can't quite grab it because I'm tired. I did not get enough sleep last night. What was the other big idea from him that I don't want to like give away? There was like some things we took from that I want to use on our staff here. I can't wait, and I'm not even going to say it because I don't want them to be predetermining what their answers are going to be.
Right.
But I will be giving them all a little quiz, and I'm super excited about it. But there was a few like really big, just sort of like team takeaways. I can't think of it right now.
Right. I know the one you're talking about, and I'll hold off on it. But there's some ideas and things about how to determine, a person for hiring. Also, how to determine what your company goals are, and what your, how you lay that foundation of the organization you want to have. And we talked about this in our last Facebook Live together. Which is the culture we're trying to build at our company, and the idea that you really have to stick to that culture in your hiring decisions.
No faltering. Like whatever your cultural or organizational goals are, like this is who we are, and defining those things, which I think we all know we need to define. You're really, you got to write that down. You got to have that defined. We should write that down.
Right. But that too, you have to hold to that, core to keep that organizational health.
Yes.
Which can even lead to you having to lose a client or lose a customer.
Yeah.
Because that's something that's happening against the core of your company, the values of your company. But
I really believe, and I'm sure you all do too, that customer who doesn't fit with your core values or your company's culture, they are just not the customer for you. So it's okay to lose them. There's so many more out there that fit right into that pocket of who you are. That's enough. It's like enough business for you to have, and much less stress for you to have. So, I remember the thing I was going to say.
Go for it.
It's that and it's along the lines of this, when you find that like what, you know who you are, who you want to be, the kind of people you want to work with, the kind of company you want to be, it's the repeating of that in order to get your team and your whole company or anyone, if you want them to like learn something about you, you have to tell them 7 times. So you have to keep repeating the same thing over and over and over before someone believes you. So I thought that was super interesting. And I love repeating myself, so I was really excited about that. I was like, I get it. Okay, so I could just keep talking about, like, this is the direction our company is going in. This is who we are. No, I promise you, this is what we're doing. No, we're actually going to do this. It's going to be amazing, amazing, amazing. Mm-hmm. And by the 7th time, everyone believes you. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Nice.
So just keep repeating. Do you want me to tell you again? Because I will.
So I'm trying to remember the other thing.
Renee's giving us all the love. Renee, thank you. I don't know if you did that a few minutes ago, but it's like she did. I love her. She's love, like. Thanks. You should all be doing that if you're watching us still. Thank you very much. Don't forget your thought. But I love it when our high school friends like watch, because we have several friends from high school watching. Melissa, I love it. Steve Lucasio, Melissa, Steve Lucasio, Melissa, you right? And Robbie. So we both have like old time friends watching right now, and I don't know who else if you're on there, but hey, thanks for tuning in. We love when our friends are watching us.
Okay. So my thought there was, and we should maybe open with this portion of when talking about Patrick Lencioni. He was this organizational speaker, but the reason he's talking about organizational health was because so many companies focus on other things in their the other things that they think are what drives revenue or makes a company, which is how smart their group is, how that you bring this group of people that bring all these assets, all this intelligence to your company, and that's where you're going to get the strategic advantage. And there was one other thing that I can't think of right now that was in his circle, whether it was maybe marketing, that people are squeezing everything they can out of the talent pool, and they're squeezing everything they can, out of the marketing pool, and saying, why aren't these things what drives, us forward, when the next generation, or the companies that are really getting that strategic advantage or going to that next level are the ones that are shifting and saying, no, we need to focus on organizational health. I can beat this company with smarter people because my people work together better.
Yes.
And that's where companies need to shift their focus and saying, okay, and his example there was Southwest. Why is Southwest beating all the other airlines? It's not because their planes are faster, or their
it's their organizational health.
It's their organizational
They're
health. It's
so
their culture.
healthy.
And they stick to it. They, whether you like that organizational concept or not, they've figured out that their concept works for them.
Mm-hmm.
And during the downturn after 9/11, when everyone was falling, they continued to make a profit, and they continued without cutting back.
Not one person. They didn't have to let anyone go.
And that all had to do with how healthy the culture was of their people, and that they stuck to that format. And
imagine the trust that builds with your entire company. Most important thing, how important is it that a huge company like that, huge or small, would have so much trust in you that you're going to stand behind what you said you were going to stand behind, and you do. And that just creates trust amongst the customers. It translates so well from the team to the customer. It's crazy. And obviously we know that it does for Southwest, and they're perfectly happy to lose a customer if you don't like their core values. We'll miss you is the note that you will receive. And yeah, it's a nice way of putting it. We'll miss you. I'm sorry you don't like to have fun when we're giving you the security rundown on the plane. It's fine, but that's what we like to do. We're standing behind that.
Right, a little humility.
Yes.
In a company. Yep.
Definitely. Yeah, Melissa, call me later. I'll tell you my whole quiz thing. So Melissa just did like a organizational health thing for her company. So she's like wanting to know about the quiz, which is so simple. I'm going to tell you, it's going to blow your mind, and you're going to be like, I'm doing this with everyone. But I'm not going to tell you on live because my team's watching.
Yeah. So maybe we'll put it up later.
We'll put it up later after we do the team. But yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll do it next week. We'll have a quick little recap on this next Friday. I love it.
Sounds good.
We've been talking forever.
About 40 minutes. So
boom! Longest one yet, except for our very first one was like so long.
And I feel like I'm just been tired of mumbling the whole time.
I know. I'm exhausted. I need a nap now. I need to go back home and go back to bed for a little bit. Anyway, but I won't. I'll be here at the office. So if you need me, just jingle me up. I'll be right here.
We'll start implementing all these things.
Exactly. I've got a lot of work to do. So much work. Anyway, thanks for joining all our friends. We appreciate you. We love you. Renee, thank you for so much love. You're always giving it to us. We love you for that, and all of our other friends. Happy Friday. Happy 4th of July, everybody.
Happy 4th of July. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.